And joining us now, Navdeep Bains, who until last month was the Liberal Member of Parliament for Mississauga, Brampton South. And I remember you in 2004 coming into this studio
Yes,
as part of our rookies panel.
That's right.
And here you are again.
Well, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Thank you for being here. You are, I think it's fair to say, one of the most visible Sikh members of the last Parliament, in part because of the turban that you wear on your head.
Correct.
Let's just do some background off the top. Sikhism, what is the faith about?
Basically, it boils down to modern religious faith. Basically, over 500 years old, believes in equality, social justice, freedoms, freedom of religion, believes in basically people that follow the faith believe in one God. So a very simple, straightforward, modern faith.
You say modern, but it's 500 years old.
Relative to, say, Christianity or relative to the other faiths that have been around for much, much longer.
And what does it mean to you personally to be a Sikh?
Just to be a good person. I know that's oversimplification, but that's what it boils down to, is to be a good person, not only internally but externally, to be good to people around you, to try to live truthfully, to be honest, to work hard. And those are the values that are very much part of the Sikh faith.
Is there a connection for you between your faith and public service?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Well, I think there's some common values. If you look at the Sikh faith and if you look at Canadian values, there's a lot in common. Take for the notion equality. The Sikh faith was founded on equality. One should not discriminate against anyone because of their caste, color, their sex or gender. And so therefore that notion of equality is very much for the Sikh faith, but that's also very much a Canadian value. We take great pride in that. It's part of our constitutional democracy. It's part of the Charter of Rights and Freedom. And so that's very much, for me, a connection between my personal values and my faith and those that in the Canadian context and Canadian politics.
Now, first of all, the audio guy is going to give me $20 after I get off the air for me to tell you that that's a beautiful bracelet, but it's knocking on the table all the time and driving him crazy.
No problem.
So, yes.
It's part of my faith as well, but I'm more than willing to accommodate.
Okay. Well, is there anything particular about the faith or culture that you think makes Sikhs, as opposed to other different groups in our country, particularly interested in public service?
I think it first of all stems from a sense of belonging. I think the Sikh community very much understands that they're very fortunate to live in a country where they can practice their unique faith, where they have the ability to be very much part of any other like any other Canadian. I remember when I was growing up in the early 1990s, Baltej Dillon, for example, was an RCMP officer that wanted to join the RCMP, had some challenges, but then he was ultimately allowed to do so because he wanted to wear a turban, and he was able to wear a turban in the RCMP and still does up until today. My good friend Harjit Sajjan is a part of the Canadian Armed Forces, and he too wears a turban and is very much part of Canadian society. So I think those are clear examples.
And you always did? And did you ever have anybody give you a hard time over wearing your turban in Parliament?
No, but I do recall not too long ago with respects to the Kirpan issue, when the Bloc presented a motion in the House, or they wanted to present a motion in the House, and they did so at the provincial level, and they wanted to ban the Kirpan from the House of Commons.
This is the ceremonial dagger.
That's correct. That's right.
Which you did wear in the House.
And I still do.
And
I recall talking about the fact that it was very much part of my faith, very much part of my Canadian identity, very much part of who I am. And ultimately, we went out on that debate, and that is the reason why the community is so actively involved, because it has a sense of belonging. It realizes that we have all these rights, but at the same time, we have responsibilities. It's very easy to say I have the right to wear a turban. It's very easy to say I have the right to wear a kirpan. But as a minority, we can't take that for granted, and we have a responsibility not only to protect what we have in this country, and we're very fortunate, to make sure others are also able to practice their different beliefs and their different faiths.
So if I hear you right, being a Sikh, an observant Sikh, is absolutely consistent with public service in the country. It's almost a religious calling to be in politics. Yep. Is that fair to say?
I would say absolutely. I mean, it's a very socially active faith. If you look at the Sikh history, if you look at the various prophets, it's a faith that also believes in freedom of religion, which too, again, is a very important Canadian value. The notion of multiculturalism. One of the Sikh prophets actually built a mosque. Another one sacrificed his life to make sure others could practice their faith. So it really stems from that notion that we have a responsibility to give back, to be active. Take example, the various gurdwaras across the country. People sit there in the langar halls and people prepare food, they serve food. That's an external manifestation of that notion that you got to give back, you have to work hard, and you must make sure that you help others.
Regardless of what temple you're in at the time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you look at the Golden Temple as Darbar Sahib, for example, there's 4 doors, and each door represents this notion that everyone's welcome, that regardless, again, who you are, where you come from, you're more than welcome to come in, be part of the congregation, have a meal, and everyone's welcome. And that is really an external, again, example of taking a Sikh philosophy and then it's showing it played out on a day-to-day lifestyle where people actively get involved, prepare food, serve food, and help their other members of the community.
I want to make sure I'm saying it properly, because I've always said Sikh, but now I hear you saying Sikh all the time. Which is it?
Sikh. It's a different way of expressing it.
You say tomato, I say tomato?
That's correct.
Both are okay?
Yes.
Okay, good enough. The tradition of Seva, selfless service.
Yes.
That's part of Sikhism as well, right?
Absolutely.
And therefore consistent with public life.
Exactly, and it's a very important tenet. There's a couple of examples in Mississauga, for example. Some of my good friends have opened up a food bank called a Seva food bank. Oh. And it's again about selfless sacrifice, helping others. It's not only about the Sikh community. I think you'll notice now with second, third, fourth generations, because Sikhs have been in Canada for now over 100 years, you'll see the community now branching out beyond simply members of its own community and own faith and interacting with other faiths and other communities very well. And Seva Food Bank is an example of that. And that's the concept that really, again, is part of the culture, the mentality, the thinking. Another example is the Canadian Blood Services. I just saw a few days ago that it talked about visible minorities and certain ethnic groups are not donating enough blood. But it actually pointed out that the Sikh community was the exception. And again, that comes from that notion of giving back, of wanting to participate, of having a responsibility to participate. And that's very much entrenched with the Sikh philosophy. It's not simply a matter of having certain values, as I talked about, very consistent with Canadian values, but it's about putting them into action.
Okay, public life we've touched on, but there's also a long history of Sikhism having a long association with military as well.
Yes.
Same kind of idea there?
Absolutely. I mean, my grandfather served in the military, in the Indian Army. As I indicated to you, that we take pride in that service. And for example, every Remembrance Day, I actually participated in a local Remembrance Day ceremony. Then I traveled to Kitchener, where we also remember Private Bukam Singh, the first Sikh that is actually buried there. And there's a ceremony that takes place there from First World War I. And an incredible history.
There's a Sikh Canadian?
Yes, that's right. From World War I in Kitchener. That's right. And there's a ceremony. There's a lot of education that going on in the community. And again, it boils down to the fact that we have a responsibility, right? And a responsibility to fight for those values. And we've seen those values not only consistent with Canadian values, but going back to World War II, World War I. And that is a prime example of how the community takes pride in those that are involved in defending our national, international interests as well. And Bukam Singh's story is a remarkable story. Coming to being buried here, protecting and fighting in protecting Canadians and fighting in World War I, being part of the British Empire then at that time. It was a remarkable story.
What are the origins of the Sikh duty to fight injustice?
It again starts with the Sikh prophets. The founding of the faith was based on equality and fighting against injustice. And then it manifests itself throughout various forms and examples. And as I indicated to you, for example, it was the ninth prophet, Guru Tegh Bahadur, who decided to, again, sacrifice himself so that other people can practice their faith. And that's very much part of the Sikh identity, the culture. We are a minority in Canada, we're a minority in India. We've been a minority for since the inception of the Sikh faith, right? It's not a faith that goes out and converts. It's very much a faith that people, if you choose to practice it, by all means you can. And we always realize that as a minority, we have a responsibility to fight for what we have, but also to make sure others also have those same opportunities, right?
Okay, so if this draw to public service is so strong in the faith, one would assume that Sikhs would be disproportionately represented in the House of Commons. Now, I won't ask you to speak for this House because you're not there, but in the last House, was that the case?
Again, if you look at the population and the number of MPs, yes, one could argue that there was a higher percentage of MPs in the House of Commons versus the population. But that will fluctuate time to time depending on many factors, on party status and so forth, and political election outcomes. But the fundamental driver, you're absolutely right, is that there is a desire, not only at the federal level, provincially and municipally as well.
Well, here's where I find out how partisan you really are. You never have been one of the more partisan ones, but you know that Conservative MP Tim Uppal is the first turbaned Sikh to sit in the cabinet of this country.
Yes.
He's there right now. He represents one of the ridings in Western Canada.
Correct.
Now, admittedly, he's a Conservative, and I'm sure you wish it weren't. But having said that, is that a big deal for you to see a man with a turban?
It's a point of pride, I think, for many Canadians, including the Sikh community, but also reflects the kind of country we have. And again, reminds us how incredible multiculturalism is, the fact that it does work, the fact that regardless of what you look like, it's what you believe in, what your values are, what you're willing to stand up for, that really matters. And he's representing a riding in Western Canada. He's sitting in the cabinet table, and I think that's a positive step, not only for the community, but also for Canada and Canadians in general.
Well, let's find out how positive a sign you think it is. Would it have been better for him to win, get into cabinet, be a physical manifestation of how well Sikhs have done in this country, or would it have been better for a 60-year-old white male to have won that seat, who was a liberal?
Well, for me, at a political level, I would want a liberal to win, because I very much believe in the Liberal Party and the liberal progressive agenda, because I think it's the right direction for our country. But on a personal level, to see other people from other communities do well politically is always good for the country as well. Mind you, I would have to work hard to convince him to join the Liberal Party.
So I think that's going to be a tough sell in the next little while. Okay, now let's finish up on this. The visibility of your faith, the turban, you talk about the kirpan. They have sometimes been seen as obstacles to Sikhs participating in various things, public service, military, kids soccer, you know,
Yes,
a whole bunch of different things. It would be presumably easier for many Sikhs to say, you know what, this door is obviously not open to us and we're just going to forget about it. That appears not to be the case. Why have so many in your community not simply given up?
Again, it comes from this notion that we are very fortunate to live in a country where we can practice our unique identity, that we must fight for what we believe in, not only for ourselves but for others as well. And we're also very fortunate to live in a country where we have a constitutional democracy that's based on the charter rights and freedom that enables us to practice our faith. And we know we have that support. We know we have those laws in place. I very much consider myself as part of the charter generation. I was born in 1977, but as you know, in '82 the charter came into effect, and I've seen charter jurisprudence. I've seen various cases before the courts where it's been very clear that minority rights are there and protected, and so that makes Sikhs feel very much part of the system, very much part of Canadian lifestyle, and that's why they're so actively engaged.
One last thing. Most folks I know didn't expect you to lose on election night. How you doing?
Very well. I mean, if losing on election night was one of the worst things that could happen to me, I'm extremely fortunate. I'm blessed with two young girls, my wife. They've been very supportive, and you know, I adapt to change very well, and I look forward to getting involved in the community.
Nav, good luck with whatever comes next.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in to TVO tonight.
Thanks very much for having me.
Navdeep Bains.